Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I'm your host, Joey DeMeglio, and this week, Statboy Steven is here to talk about the Ranger prospects in the World Junior Championships. Steven, thanks for being here today. How are you?
Doing well. It's always fun to be here with you. So yeah, looking forward to it. A lot going on, even though it's August.
Yeah, and this is I was telling you before we started the recording that this is really one of the first chances for normal fans of the Rangers to see these prospects that they've drafted over the past couple of years. So Othman, Will Cooley, Adam Sikora, who they just drafted uh literally a month or two ago. And it's incredible to see, how well they are performing. Othman had a rough start. He got healthy scratch in his first game. And I saw your comparisons to the head coach of Team Canada. He looks and plays his players
He,
like former Rangers head coach David
well, he
Quinn.
looks like David Quinn too. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
the resemblance is there. Yeah. No, but it's just David Cameron, which is for me growing up in Europe. The name David Cameron is that of the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Um, And the funny thing is that David Cameron was very controversial about 6, 7 years ago because a story leaked from his days in college where he stuck his penis in the mouth of a dead pig. So
Yeah.
for a guy named David Cameron to be controversial is nothing new to me.
Ugh.
Um, but somehow we're talking about this David Cameron. Yeah, he's doing weird things with the lines, and today too. Um, Cooley is because he played Cooley, Bedard, and McTavish on the top line the previous game against Switzerland. Now in the semifinal today, he has Bedard, who is like the consensus number one pick next year, and Will Cooley on the third line, Othman on the fourth line. So McTavish is playing with two completely new players.
McTavish and Othman were teammates, right?
They played together in Switzerland in their draft year. They're really good friends. Um, they were roommates together in Switzerland. Brennan Othman is really good friends with Connor Bedard. They're getting they're really comfortable together. So to see all this line juggling when you're doing really well, I don't get it. Othman had 6 points in 3 games,
And
and
not to mention, not to cut you off, but Othman's doing well. How good has McTavish been? Like, he's been killing it. So it does, yeah, like I agree with you. I don't I don't get how you would separate the chemistry and the
mm,
point production. And on top of that, limit Othman's ice time to around 12 minutes a game. Like,
yeah.
you would think having a guy like that, a guy like Bedard, they should be getting, upwards of 15 minutes, you
Mhm.
know? Give them like 4 or 5 extra shifts, something. Like,
Yeah, and it's not a 60 or 70 game season where you can try out some new lines. It's a 7 game tournament. It's over in a week and a half.
right. And I saw some of those highlights that you were posting. That the some of these prospects are killing it. Othman in particular, 6 points in 4 games.
Mhm.
Cooley 3 points in 5 games. Adam Sikora had a highlight reel goal. I was so impressed by that one. The
Yeah,
crossover move from the left boards to the inside, and then the give and go with the right winger
yeah,
back to Sikora and buries the goal. That was incredible.
yeah. But
Um,
also Othman had some really good assists that are not talked about enough. We always talk about secondary assists not meaning much, but there was an assist in the game against I think it was against Czechia or was it against Finland. Anyway, Othman has the puck in his own zone, and he has a breakout pass to Connor Bedard in a neutral zone on the opposite side of the ice. And Bedard passes it through to McTavish for a breakaway, and McTavish scores. It's a secondary assist, but without that pass by Othman, the goal doesn't happen. Sometimes you have secondary assists that are just meaningless. They're not contributing to how the goal was scored. But in this case, it definitely was. He had a primary assist on McTavish where he forced a turnover. He had a strong forecheck, and he forced the goalie to play the puck early, and Othman intercepted it, passed it to McTavish. Boom, another assist. The second goal he had in the tournament against Switzerland, No, sorry, against I keep forgetting which game it was. It was the last game of the group stage against Finland. Canada hasn't created anything for the first 5 minutes of the game. Othman goes into the corner, strong forecheck, causes a turnover, positions himself in front of the net. Owen Zellweger shoots from the blue line and he deflects it in. That is an NHL goal. That is the type of goal that will translate very well to the pro level because that's how goals are scored in the NHL, especially in the playoffs. And we saw Chris Kreider score 17 goals off deflections this season, which in itself is great. It's unreal because since the NHL started tracking type of goals, so off deflections, etc., in 2009, the second highest goals off deflections in a single season is 12, and Kreider had 17.
So yeah, he just obliterated that record, and it's
Exactly.
good. It's good to hear that Othman's playing this style where he's in on the forecheck. Like
Yeah,
that fits the Rangers like that fits Gallant's style. So and it's kind of making me think like maybe he does have a good chance of making if he plays as well as he's been playing so far for Team Canada with the different coach. Dave Cameron. I don't know why he's not giving him more. I would reward a player that's
yeah,
performing, producing like that.
If you look at the Rangers team right now, I think there's definitely a spot for Othman to start the season. I'm not sure he's going to be there all season, but he could at least start there on the third line. In 2014, Anthony Duclair played, I think, 18 games on the Rangers. He was on the team for 36, and he was sent back to juniors in January after the World Junior Championship that year. I could see a similar path for Othman, where they have him on the team for 3-4 months. They play him 20 games, 25 games, and then they send him back to juniors after the World Junior Championship. Because who else are you going to play on the third line? You can play Goudreau there, you can play Sammy Blais there, maybe Dryden Hunt, but do you really want those players on your third line, or do you want to go with some scoring touch? And I mean, I'm pretty sure they're going to try out at least a couple of games if he does well in preseason. And we'll just take it from there. He cannot go to Hartford, so it's either New York or Flint for him. But yeah, this World Juniors tournament, he's really shown what he can do, and he plays a different style when he needs to, when he's asked to. When he's on the fourth line, he plays strong forecheck, gritty game. He hits players at the right moments, and when he's on the top line, he's creating offense. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but I'm really happy with what Brennan Othman has shown this summer.
What about Will Cooley?
I think Cooley has also had a good World Juniors, a little bit in Brennan Othman's shadow the first 4 or 5 games, of course, but he was on the top line in the quarterfinal against Switzerland, scored a goal. Tonight he's back on the third. He's on the third line. He's been decent. I'm not going to complain too much about a guy who was a second round pick and who's playing for Canada in the World Juniors, because it's a different thing playing for Canada in the World Juniors or playing for, with all due respect, Slovakia or Finland, Sweden. Canada has so much depth to even make the team for Canada at the World Juniors. That's already an accomplishment. But Cooley has been good. Cooley's been decent. And going into the tournament, you've always felt that Cooley was going to be the physical presence for the Rangers. Out of their 7 prospects, of course, Garand is a goalie, so let's talk about the 6 skaters then. But he's still been physical, but he's been kind of out-muscled in a way by the other 5. The other 5 have really put on a show when it comes to playing gritty hockey, strong forecheck, hitting at the right moment. Some bad plays like Brett Berard getting game misconduct for a slew foot. That's not something you want to see. But other than that, Brett Berard has been a pest on the ice. He's getting under people's skin, really annoying the opposition to the point where he's been on the ice for 6 goals this tournament. Most of them were on the power play, but he was creating chaos in front of the net. Then you have Yaroslav Kmelars for Czechia, who was a 5th round pick last year. A lot of people don't really know much about him. He played in junior hockey in Finland for Jokerit. He's coming to North America this summer to play for Providence Friars in the NCAA now. But this tournament, in the games he played, really physical, strong presence. He had a Finnish player into the bench. He had a boarding call on Brennan Othman, unfortunately, which was the second game misconduct. Or maybe that was the first one. Anyway, 1 of 4 game misconducts for Ranger prospects. But the way he plays is exactly what you want to see from what the Rangers are trying to do in the draft. We have our top 6 players. We have our top 6 prospects in Kakko and Lafreniere and Kravtsov. Now what they went after the last couple of years in the draft was to develop their own bottom 6 players. Because if you look at previous Stanley Cup winners like the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Colorado Avalanche, to a lesser degree, but still, the teams that go far in the playoffs are the teams that either acquire their bottom 6 players very cheap or develop the bottom 6 players themselves. And the Rangers have always been the team that to overpay for their bottom 6 players. Now you have Ryan Reeves on the books for $1.75 million. Barclay Goodrow makes more than 3.5. That's just too much for 4th line players. And you can have maybe one, but most of your bottom 6 should be low cost players. And if you can develop them yourself with Berard, now with Cooley, Khmelars, maybe if he makes the team, in a bottom 6 role, Kalle Väisänen, and also in Hartford, we have guys like Adam Edstrom now and Matthew Rempe. They really targeted these gritty physical players, especially in the later rounds. And it's paid off so far. Of course, we don't know how they're going to develop, but I like what I'm seeing from the guys, giving us what we expected from them.
Yeah, and I want to talk more about the physical side of like the game misconducts and stuff. You have mentioned a lot recently on your Twitter account about how physical this group of Rangers prospects is, and you said it might be the most physical group we've ever seen, especially from from the forward side of it. Most of these guys are forwards, right?
Yeah, we have 6 forwards and 1 goalie. There are no defensemen for the Rangers.
No defensemen. Interesting. Yeah, we've been drafting so many defensemen. It's cool to see now that we're loading up on the forwards.
Nice pun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like I asked you to post like one of the hits. I guess it was the Othman. I think it was the Othman one.
It was the
Khmelars
on Othman, yeah, because there was no video online of the whole play leading up to it, and there was like a 5-second clip that was hovering around social media. So I went back to the game and recorded the whole sequence that led up to it, and in that sequence you can see that Othman hits him first. So there's a little bit of payback in that hit, but it's just awkward. But look, there's no hard feelings. I spoke to Khmelars a couple of days later, and I was curious, so I asked him if he and Othman actually spoke after the game. They did, and Khmelars told me that he and Othman, they shook hands and everything's fine, no hard feelings, and Khmelars is going to buy Othman a steak dinner the next time they're in New York together. So all good. And look, it's nothing new. We had Braden Schneider spearing Carl Henriksen at the Under-18 World Championship before we even drafted either of them. We had Brady Shea and Pavel Buchnevich having issues at the World Juniors. That was pretty funny, actually. Where as payback, when Buchnevich scored against Team USA, he was celebrating his goal in front of the bench, right in front of Brady Shea. So yeah, I should actually look up that video. There are pictures floating around online of that moment. If you look up Buchnevich Shea World Juniors, you'll find it.
Lafreniere stole the puck from Keandre Miller and scored in his face, basically.
Exactly.
And now they're teammates and they're good buddies now.
Yeah, and these things happen. These things happen. The year prior, I think, was Lafreniere in that tournament too. Did he lose to Kakko in the final, or in the semifinal? Like, these players play each other. They know each other, and then when they get drafted by the same team, it's always fun. But they're playing to win, and they're not going to hold back because they see a guy in front of them that they saw a couple of months ago in New York. Although in this case, Kmelaars wasn't in New York because he was with the Czech team trying to earn a spot on the team.
I like that the what you're saying. So about the physicality, it's not just that. It's not just all big men on skates go and hit each other. It's not
No,
that.
no,
There's so much more to their game, to each of these players'
Yeah.
games. Like Othman has offensive presence. Like he's producing. Cooley too, same thing. Berard is a pest. Sakura, the highlight reel goal. Like he's got skill and talent. It's not just I'm gonna go around and body check everybody. These guys fit today's NHL narrative or today's, I guess, standard of play. You need to be a good skater that could make a pass, that could play offense, but you still have to be physical. You're not just being physical, or you're not just being all skill. You have to have a combination of both. And that's probably the identity of like a third or a fourth liner, in my opinion. You need to be able to score, but you also need to be able to stand your ground.
Yeah, and I've said this for years. You should never sacrifice skill for physicality. You do that when you play guys like Tanner Glass, Cody McLeod, Daryl Poe, Brandon Mashinter, who was the other guy, Ben Ferrero. Those guys just bring physicality, and that's not enough. Not in today's NHL. You need to bring physicality on top of actual hockey IQ and gameplay and talent. And when you look at the guys in this tournament, I know they're playing against opponents that are their age, so it's not really comparable to see who's getting to the NHL, because you have to remember, for 75% of these players in the tournament, this is the highlight of their career. There are a lot of players in this tournament that will never play in the NHL, especially on the smaller teams like Latvia, Slovakia. They're not going to Germany. They're not going to make it to the NHL. But what you see with the guys we have in the tournament is that they are contributing in different ways. Kalle Väisänen is now on the third line for Finland, ahead of Brad Lambert, who was a first-round pick for the Winnipeg Jets, with our draft pick, by the way, that we gave them for Andrew Copp. But they're contributing in ways that you want them to contribute. And Cooley's versatility, being moved up from the fourth line to the first line, now to the third line, that's definitely hopeful. That that gives you some positive energy. But I'm just happy that we get to see these players and that we have this many in the tournament. This is the most prospects the Rangers have had in a single World Juniors tournament since 1983-84.
Wow. Yeah. So I think they're doing something right with the draft. I mean, they have a new staff now. They've made a number of changes. They just hired Ari Vuori. That's how you pronounce his name?
Ari Vuori is the new director of European scouting.
Yeah, they officially announced that literally 5 minutes before I sent Steven the link to join the episode.
Yeah.
And
I actually noticed this a couple of weeks ago. I was just someone on HF boards actually mentioned it, and then I went to the staff directory on the Rangers website, and I noticed some new names. But yeah, they lost a couple of people. They lost Kevin Maxwell, Chris Morehouse. Maxwell went, I think, to the St. Louis Blues. Chris Morehouse, I think, to the San Jose Sharks to join Mike Greer. But this happens. You always have turnover. You always have people leaving. But they're hiring new people. They're hiring Ari Vuori, who worked with our director of player personnel, John Lilly. And you hire a guy like Garth Joy from the Colorado Avalanche, who was with the organization for 20 years. He has two Stanley Cup, two Stanley Cup rings. One from what was the first one? Colorado won 2001, I think. Was it 2001?
Colorado won in 2001. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The early 2000s are always a bit blurry for me because it's like Red Wings, Avalanche, Devils, and it's always which one is which.
Which year they won?
Yeah. I remember 2003 was the Devils because Jaguar won the Conn Smythe as the goalie of the losing team. And that is Conn Smythe photo in history. I've never seen anyone look so defeated and sad accepting the Conn Smythe trophy. In those beautiful Mighty Ducks jerseys, by the way.
Yeah, certainly one of those rare feats that might never happen again.
Yeah, but look, they get Garth Joy from the Colorado. They get Andrew Schneider from the Devils. who used to work with Chris Morehouse in Columbus. So there's connections everywhere. But this happens. There's players leaving, there's players joining. It is what it is. We're gonna have to wait and see how it goes. We have to wait and see how these people adjust, and what impact they're gonna have on the Rangers. But Ari Vuori is a guy that came through the ranks for TPS, because why wouldn't they hire a former TPS guy? Because that's all. It seems like it's the only team in Finland the Rangers are dealing with. Their scout in Finland, Mikko Eloranta, used to play for TPS. They signed Georgiev from TPS. They drafted Reunanen, Patrick Virta, Lauri Pajuniemi, Kaapo Kakko, and now Kalavaisenen. Just, it's there's so many connections there. But yeah, we'll see what happens. He's basically the successor of Nick Bobrov, who left last year. So yeah, a bit of a turnaround. Hopefully the Rangers can focus a little bit more on European scouting now, because I still think that European scouting is, for an original 16, a must, because there are so many gems to discover. Look at the Red Wings, how they got guys like Zetterberg and Datsuk. Original 6 teams have the funding, the finances to scout every league in Europe. And you might find some gems here or there. Why not invest in it? So I'm happy to see Vuori being hired, but it's going to be a couple of years before we can really see what his impact is.
Yeah, and it seems like the upper management, Chris Drury and company, have a specific style of player that they're looking for. Like you said, it's difficult to acquire bottom 6 players for cheap. I think a lot of teams are guilty of just handing out whatever dollar amounts to, third or fourth line players that had career years. David Clarkson, Nathan Horton's contract. I mean, I know he was more of a skilled forward, but that contract didn't end up working out. Andrew Ladd's another example. Milan Lucic is another example. Matt Martin. Yeah, exactly. Like all these guys.
Brendan Prust, when he signed as a free agent in Montreal.
Yep. Benoit Pouliot too. It's just like they have the one good year, and then it's like, yeah, we need this player. I'm gonna give him whatever he wants, and it's just you overshoot by almost $2 million. And in a tight cap world that the NHL is, it's just not feasible. And I think the best option is for the teams to develop the players. Yeah, it's gonna take a while, maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 years till they get to the NHL, but you're gonna have 3 years of entry level control when they're up on the team. So these players that they have, Othman, Cooley, Sikora, Berard, they all seem, from what you're describing to me, again, I haven't seen much of the games, just been busy with stuff, but I've tried to look at the highlights. And from what you're describing to me, it seems that they all play sort of similar styles, and that they fit that sort of identity that Gerard Gallant wants with his current Rangers, especially in the bottom 6. So is this the style that we're going to see them play if they ever make the Rangers?
Yeah, look, and I spoke to most of these kids for my prospect interview series. Brendan Othman sees himself as a hybrid between Matthew Tkachuk and Kyle Connor. He plays a physical game like Matthew Tkachuk, but his scoring style, like his elite sniper ability, which I really think it is very much like Kyle Connor in his opinion. You have a guy like Adam Sikora, who plays a very gritty game, who plays a game that can translate really well to third or fourth line duties on a contender. And he's the type of player that the Colorado Avalanche traded for at the deadline in Artturi Lehkonen. I think there's definitely things to compare between Sikora and Lehkonen. And they were drafted at the same range. They needed to work their way up there. But if Sikora can develop the same way, he can be a really good quality bottom 6 player. Brett Berard sees himself as a Brendan Gallagher type player, which again, it's the type of player that you need in your bottom 6. You need players on your third line that play a gritty game, but can also pop a few goals.
Brendan Gallagher is a good comparison, I feel like, because it's just that's a nice name to bring up, because that's one of those players that's a heart and soul kind of guy in Montreal. He's been there forever.
I always try to stay away from Brett Marchand comparisons, because it's just too easy. It's like the go-to comparison for everyone when a prospect is hitting a lot and playing a gritty style. If a prospect is fighting a lot, then everyone goes, "Oh, he's like Tom Wilson." So those are the comparisons I always try to steer clear from if I can. But I usually go with what the prospects are telling me, like Matthew Rempe, who played for the Seattle Thunderbirds, and who we drafted in 2020 in the 6th round. He compares himself to Adam Lowry of the Winnipeg Jets. And again, that's a player that doesn't score a lot of goals, but a player that has like a role to play on a team that wants to win games.
Right, and it's just the player comparables. I know there's a bunch of people that feel that player comparables and comparisons are not the best way to judge, how a young player their career will project.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
nice to see. I mean, if you want to see, if you're a fan and you don't get a chance to watch their games, like think of this player when you see this young player play.
Yeah.
Think of this guy.
So when I look at comparisons, I don't look at how good that player is going to become. I look more at what kind of game are they playing. So you can have, for instance, Philip Hedl, who plays a little bit like Artem Anisimov on offense. Also like offensively, same thing with Artem Anisimov. Artem Anisimov could have like a hot streak that lasted a week, where he would score 6 goals in 8 games, and then he would dry up for like a month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sounds like Philip Hedl, but it's more stylistically. The comparisons I usually try to go for or try to ask from players is stylistically. It's not necessarily the upside. If someone says Philip Hedl is Philip Hedl's comparison is Evgeny Malkin, it doesn't mean that Hedl is going to score 100 points or get 100 points and score 40 goals. It just means that he plays a similar way with the large fan. I'm not saying that that's the comparison, just to explain the difference between stylistic and upside comparisons.
And I just want to clarify something. So when I say like the style that these young players are playing with in the World Junior Championships, that's their style, even like during regular season games, whatever leagues they come from, right? This isn't just, they're in a tournament with Canada, and this is just like now they're playing a lot different.
Well, I'd say Cooley and Othman are playing a different role based on where they are in the lineup. Cooley scored, how many goals did Cooley have? About 40 in juniors. But this is age 20 year. So, yeah, he's supposed to be scoring at that age in juniors. But for Team Canada in the World Junior Championship, he played on the 4th line at the start, and he's playing different. And same with Othman. When Othman was on the first line with McTavish and Bedard, he played in a very offensive-minded role. He was creating offense. He was trying to pass the puck a lot. Whereas on the 4th or 3rd line, he plays the type of role where he's on the forecheck. He's trying to cause turnovers and not make that risky play. So based on what line they're on, they play different styles. And with the other guys, you don't really have that, because they play kind of the same role on their national team as they do for their club team.
If I had to take something away from, these like Othman, his game and his performance thus far in the tournament, I'd have to say his accountability for himself. But, he answered the bell. He got healthy scratched in one of the first games, and immediately he comes back in the lineup in the next game, and he gets 3 points, right? 3 or 4 points, something like that.
Yeah, I think he had a goal and 2 assists.
A goal and 2 assists, yeah, and meaningful contribution. It's like he's stepping up. Like, no, I'm not gonna. I don't want to like just put myself down. I'm gonna work hard now, and I want to make sure that I belong in this lineup. That's what I like to see. I like seeing that. The goals and the assists are nice, but what preceded that and how he responded makes a huge difference to me.
Yeah.
And if you could be like that in the NHL, you could go. I think you could go places.
Yeah. Yeah, no, true. And this is just what happens when when you join a team like Canada for the World Juniors. You know, their depth is amazing. So they have Connor Bedard on the third line today. That's unreal. Well, it's also because David Cameron's an idiot, but that's a different discussion. That coach is going to stumble his way into a gold medal tomorrow. It's ridiculous. But look, the players are not playing for their coach. They're playing for a gold medal. They're playing for their teammates. Othman's on the fourth line. He's going to play a fourth line role for them, and he's going to do everything in his power to get his team to a win today so they can win gold tomorrow.
I see. Yeah, and I mean, it's. I guess it's true that they all work for each other, but I still think like that I want to be here, and it makes it even better that you brought up Canada's depth. Like every single year, I feel like they always have first round. Their entire team is filled with just first round picks, like that have been drafted or upcoming projected first round picks.
Yeah.
Previous first round picks, basically. It basically is their entire team. First rounder, first through fourth line, all the defensive pairings, and then the goaltenders. The goaltenders a little bit difficult because
no, Canadian goaltenders are. I think Dylan Garand is the best Canadian goaltender they've had since Carey Price at a tournament like this.
Right, but he wasn't a first round pick. So I'll change whatever I was saying originally.
Yeah, no, but Canada is always struggling to find the right goalies for these tournaments. It's crazy. It's crazy how they can never get a really good goalie for the World Juniors. It's their one issue. And this year they have Dylan Garand, who the first 3 games he was really strong at a .930 save percentage, and then he let in I think 5 goals against Finland. He let in like 4 goals and 3 goals or something like that, like 6 or 7 goals in 2 games. So his save percentage dropped a bit, but he's getting the job done. And if they beat Czechia tonight, they have a really good chance of winning gold. They're going to go up against either Finland or Sweden. I think if they play Sweden, they're going to have a tough time. I think Sweden is the second best team in this tournament. And unfortunately, the Rangers have no prospects on Team Sweden.
I was just going to mention that. We were talking about that before.
Yeah, that's probably the craziest thing about this tournament, that the Rangers have 7 prospects and not one of them is Swedish. And I feel bad for Adam Sikora. The kid's 17, he's playing in the World Juniors, and the 3 best players are not there. Juraj Slafkovsky, Simon Nemec, and Filip Mesar, all first-round picks a month ago, are not in the tournament because their NHL teams have not released them for the tournament. So they finished last in the group. Latvia made it to the quarterfinals instead of them.
17 years old for Sikora. Yeah. One of the youngest players in this draft class. And, it'll be a while. It'll be a while before we see him, but he's looking like a really good player. I like what I absolutely enjoyed. I loved every second of that highlight reel goal. Just the wherewithal to make that move to the inside between the defender's legs, and just the give and go is beautiful.
And then instead of going straight for the goal, he passed it to open up the ice.
Yeah,
and then he got it back.
Give himself just that split second of time to get a little bit closer to the net and free himself up a little bit more, because he created a 2-on-1 by making that initial move past the defender. And that was just a spectacular goal. That's the stuff that you want to see. It's great that Sikora.
All 6 of our skater prospects have scored in this tournament, so that's all you can ask for, right? You want to see them find the back of the net. So
everyone's contributed in some meaningful way. I remember when Zach Jones and Keandre Miller were on the same team. This was a couple of years ago. That
2020.
Zach Jones had a really good one. People were raving about his play. They were very impressed with that. And then when you brought up on your account that Bob McKenzie had spoke very highly of Brennan Othmann. You mentioned it earlier, that breakout pass to Bedard, and Bedard with a little, through pass over to McTavish, who scored the goal. Very nice, incredible backhand. It was a backhand forehand, or forehand backhand, and then a quick forehand, open up the wickets past the goalie. But that breakout pass, though, incredible. It was literally perfect, tape to tape from his own end. Othmann had great vision. head up all the way. That's what you want to see. You got to move the puck quickly, and Othman did just that. And if Bob McKenzie is praising you for that, that's a huge deal because I mean he's been around for such a long time. He knows what he's talking about. One of
Yeah.
the biggest analysts out there. He's quote unquote retired now, but he was
No,
very
look,
big into the
Bob McKenzie didn't retire. He just started drinking margaritas, and
yeah,
he still shows up everywhere talking about hockey. The guy just cannot let it go, and I'm thankful for it.
yeah. His coverage is great. He's a very fun person
Yeah,
to listen to.
yeah, the
So
guy's a legend,
yeah, but
absolute legend.
yeah, and I guess the last question I'll talk to you is like, have you envisioned? We've talked about where they could fit in on the Rangers roster. Third or fourth line is probably where they're going to end up if they were to make it the team
Well,
anytime in the next
yeah,
1 to 2
except for
years.
Othman. Othman has
It's
top six potential,
right, yeah.
and
Maybe
Othman can play left wing and right wing, so there's versatility there as well.
yeah, right. And you never know. You never. I was gonna say, let's say he makes a team this year or next year, he might be in the bottom six. Like he'll probably be in the bottom six, but you never know. Maybe he goes on a tear and just
Mhm.
lights it up, gets 10 goals in 10 games or something like that, and gets promoted to the first line. Like you never know. We don't know
And
what will happen.
and even if he doesn't, what matters here is what the Rangers think is best for his development. Um, so what the Rangers, even if he's not like contributing with goals every game, the Rangers are going to look at this and go, spending 3 months in the NHL and then going back to juniors, or sending him back now. What's best for his development? And we're talking about an organization that had Elias Anderson uh, um, loaned out to Frölunda in Sweden, and then after the World Juniors went to Hartford. Philip Hedel got a couple of games and then went to Hartford. Anthony Duclair, as I mentioned, in 2014, spent 3 months on the team, then went back to juniors. It's the same thing the Oilers did with Draisaitl. They had him on the team for 3 months and then they sent him back to juniors. So we'll see what happens. It all depends on how he does in preseason, but long term, Othman definitely has top six potential.
And he probably has the best chance of making the team at a preseason this year. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it's also because of the situation. Once you send a player back to juniors, you cannot call him up until their season
It's
is
also
over.
true. Yeah.
Whereas a player in the AHL, you can call up at any time. So they might go with Othman for the first couple of games to see what they have in him. And if it doesn't work, they send him down. Whereas a guy like Will Cooley, they can call up anytime they want because he'll be in Hartford in the AHL for the Wolfpack.
That's yeah.
So Adam Sikora is under contract. He signed his entry-level contract, but he will most likely, 99%, go back to Slovakia. And Dylan Garand will be in Hartford, I think. And the other players that are in the tournament right now are not under contract.
It's good to see that Garan will be in Hartford because I don't know about Wall and Huska. I mean, they're
Well,
okay goalies, but
Tyler Wall's no longer with the Rangers.
yeah.
So, and neither is Huska. So the
All
goalies
right.
they have in Hartford now are Olof Lindbom, our second-round pick in 2018, goalie from Sweden, Dylan Garand, and then the veteran Louis Domingue.
Yeah. They're
who
definitely
Rangers
still
fans-
trying to win games down there. That's why they got the Bing.
Well,
So
also you have the Hartford Wolfpack have weekends where they play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They play three days in a row. So going with three goalies is not the worst thing in the world. If Dylan Garand is or Olof Lindbom is sent down to the ECHL to play for the Jacksonville Icemen, it's not the end of the world. For goalies, that's fine, especially when you have like several young goalies and you want to get them game time. So we'll see what happens with those two.
how serious of a look are the Rangers going to take at Othman, Cooley, and company in preseason Sikora? Like, how well do you think Sikora is going to have to play to make the team? Let's just play hypotheticals here. You said 99% chance he's going back to wherever it was that his European team. I don't
Nitra.
remember. What's that?
Nitra.
Nitra. 99% chance he's going back to Nitra. So,
Yeah.
And then there's also the fact that, you know, that they don't play every single game. Like they give everybody else a chance. Like the Rangers scratch like Zibanejad or whatever during the preseason.
Okay, so I haven't gone over preseason lineups for the last couple of years. I did this in 2019. I went back through historical data, the lineups in preseason. You have 6 preseason games. Basically, the guaranteed starters, so guys like Panarin, Kreider, Zibanejad, Fox, Trouba, they will get 2 games out of 6. And it's most likely games 5 and 6, or at least one of them. Then you have guys that play 2 games and not make the team. Those are the long shots. Like Adam Sikora might get 2 games. Maybe Patrick Konorenko gets a game. Adam Edstrom, the Swedish guy who's going to be in Hartford. Carl Henriksson, they might get a game or 2. And then you have young guys that have a lot of upside where they want to give them a little bit of a longer look. And that could be Othman and Cooley, who might get 3, 4, or even 5 games. So we'll see what happens. But the first 2 games, you always have the most prospects playing. You know, your starting lineup's going to have 4 or 5 actual NHL players. The closer you get to the end of preseason, the more established players you're going to see in the lineup.
Right. So, and then also there's the competition, Jones and Lundqvist. I'm interested to see how that goes, how long they look at those two, because they've had NHL time in the past couple of years. Like Lundqvist just had his first dose of NHL time this past season. Zach Jones this year too had a cup of coffee, and then the year before that under David Quinn he had a short stint there too. So we'll have to see. I'm interested to see how many games they get and when they make the decision on who's making the team or who's getting sent down.
Yeah, and it depends on what the Rangers are looking for. You know, they have Libor Hayek on the team as well. What's going to happen with him? I don't know. We'll see. But between Lundqvist and Jones, it depends on what they want out of that third pair defenseman. Do you want a guy who is a little bit better at absorbing hits, who's a little bit better, defensively? There you go with Nils Lundqvist. Are you looking for a guy who's a really good puck mover, really good skater, north-south guy? Then you go with Zach Jones. Are you looking for a guy who's more east-west, more lateral movement to maybe cover up the defense for his defensive partner? That's what you get with Nils Lundqvist. It depends on what they want. Nils Lundqvist can play the left side, so that's not an issue. But it just depends on what Gerard Gallant is looking for.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how he goes with. I mean, he certainly experimented a couple times at literally just a handful of times with Jones and Lundqvist, and he also took a long look at, for whatever reason, Braun and Nemeth, or Hayek and Nemeth, and Tinordi and Nemeth.
I didn't realize we were gonna mention Tinordi tonight.
Right, like that. Then okay, I talk size with you all the time, but it's just now it's frustrating me even more. The more that I think about it, it's just like, you watching today's NHL, everybody knows that everybody could skate, could turn on a dime like so quickly, snap of a finger. They're often running, and the puck is out of their zone. Like, that's how quick you need to be. You don't need these slow, rugged, moving defensemen that are there for one job. Like, I mean, Tinordi was literally hired just signed to fight Tom Wilson, or because he had that. That was clear, very clearly he was there for that.
And did he
no,
fight Tom Wilson?
No, he didn't. So, well, that just bothers me. Like, these old-minded coaches, like Gallant's got a bit of an old mind, I guess. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. But just that stubbornness, that brick wall-ness that you can't get past. It's frustrating. And, I just really hope to see that we see some mobile puck moving defenseman on that bottom six, that third pairing.
Here's my thing with size, right? I'm not saying it's not relevant at all. I'm not writing it off completely because size is part of the game, but size alone is not what makes a good defenseman. Uh, you need to be a good. If you're a good player, then it doesn't matter how tall you are or how short you are. So defensemen that are shorter than Zach Jones, right? Jared Spurgeon, Torrey Krug, Matt Grislick, Chris Russell, Alex Biega, Ryan Ellis, Chris Whiteman, Will Butcher, Samuel Girard, Eric Brandstrom, Quinn Hughes. They are either the same size of Zach Jones or shorter. They have guys like Anton Strawman, Andy Green, Tyson Berry, Shane Gostisbehere, Tony D'Angelo, Ethan Bear, Adam Fox, of course, Cale Makar, who else? Rasmus Sandin, Sean Walker, Ty Smith, Kalen Addison. Uh, let's see, Cam York, Victor Soderstrom, Jamie Drysdale. Those are guys that are either the same size as Nils Lundqvist or shorter. So just going with a guy because he's 6'4" is a really bad way to put a defense together.
Mm-hmm.
If you have two defensemen that are equally as good defensively, and one of them is 5'11" and the other one is 6'4", go with the guy who's 6'4". But if you ask me to choose between Braden McNabb or Zach Jones, I'm not picking Braden McNabb.
You shouldn't. You
No.
shouldn't.
No.
Unless you want to have the ice tilted in your direction.
Yeah,
every
and
single game.
also some people say, well, no team has ever won a Stanley Cup with three defensemen below 6 foot. But just because it never happened doesn't mean it can never happen.
Okay, yeah.
Correlation does not equal causation. Prior to 1994, no Russian player had ever won a Stanley Cup, and we had 4 on the team. In the summer of 1993, if Twitter was around, Ranger fans would have said, well, we're never going to win a cup because we have 4 Russians on the team, and they never win cups.
All right, and it's just, yeah, like you said, that doesn't mean that it's never going to happen.
Exactly. Prior to Darian Hatcher in 1999 with the Dallas Stars, no American captain had ever lifted the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, no American. Yeah, you can't win without it with an American captain.
The 1998 NHL forums, if they were around, you need a Canadian captain, otherwise you're never going to win a cup.
Oh, our captain's American, we'll never win.
Exactly. Yeah. Correlation does not equal causation.
Right.
And of course, size is important, but it's not the be all end all. To me, size is it's not a characteristic, It's a tiebreaker.
I see no, I agree 100%. Yeah, like that example you just gave. If you have two defensemen of equal attributes, one's bigger than the other, go with the bigger guy. Yeah, you're gonna need it. Yes, of course. But solely picking a defenseman because he's bigger and has no other skills is just a pylon out there.
No. Also,
there's no point.
The difference in height between Ryan Lindgren and Nils Lundqvist is basically the thickness of a puck.
Wow, that's a lot in the grand scheme of things. So,
if Nils Lundqvist has a puck on his head before he puts his helmet on, he's the same length as Ryan Lindgren.
Yeah, and another thing, like there are puck moving defensemen that are huge, that have size on them.
Yeah,
Braden Schneider can move the puck. He's a great skater, right? Like I'm not saying that the big defensemen that could skate are non-existent. I'm not saying that you need 5'11" defenders. I'm just saying don't go with the guy that's only there for physicality and nothing else, because you're going to run into a lot of problems.
Yeah. Victor Hedman did not win a Norris Trophy because of his size.
Yeah, exactly. Like his offense, there's a number of reasons you could point to other than his size for why he won a Norris Trophy and why he's a 2-time Stanley Cup winner, right? Yeah. Like, and why he was drafted second overall. And size is one of the last things I would mention.
Yeah,
he's smart player, offensive abilities, defensive intellect. You know what I mean? Just a good all-around player too. Yeah. And size is if Victor Hedman was like 5'11", he'd still be. I still think he would be just as good.
Yeah, it's just crazy that a fan base that saw Adam Fox win a Norris Trophy is this allergic to small mobile defensemen.
Just be open-minded to, you know, different
Mm.
play. Like I want to, I will gladly entertain different line combinations. Like just as long as it's not extreme. Like don't give me Kreider's advantage at Ryan Reeves. Like I don't. That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
I don't need that. Okay, Kreider's advantage at Sammy Blais. Well, yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense, but okay, if you want to try it for a game or two, then fine. Like, I'm more accepting of that than I am of Tenorti Hayek as a pairing or Tenorti Nemeth, Hayek Nemeth.
Listen, dude. I was at the game against the Buffalo Sabres at Madison Square Garden, Hockey Fights Cancer night,
Hmm.
with Nemeth and Tenorti as a pair.
Oh yeah, I remember that they got picked apart. That I think Kina
They,
Stroza
they,
like picked what was it
they
Nemeth
both
as pocket?
they both had assists on Buffalo Sabre goals that night.
Yeah, basically. If Buffalo won that game, you could give Nemeth and Tenorti
Yeah.
like second
Mhm.
and third star of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
See, like, yeah,
And
it's just I don't mean to like point and call people out, but it's just that narrative or whatever. Oh, you're only good because of his size. It's just it's so close minded. I don't like it.
yeah.
It's, I want to see these. I want to see all this. I want to see these different combinations. Like I want to see a Jones and Lundqvist pairing. May not be the best idea because yeah, they're both small or whatever. We'll get run all over the ice. Okay, I see. I see. Yes, they're small. But like at least give me Schneider and Jones or Schneider and Lundqvist. Give me
Yeah.
one of those two. But do not give me Schneider and Libor High. Don't settle for that, please.
That's. I mean, yeah. I mean, look, you don't have to convince me about this. Um, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But at least give it a try.
That's what the preseason is for.
That's what the preseason is for. And you're not going to lose games because you play Nils Lundqvist or Zach Jones over Libor Hayek. That's not what's gonna cost you a game.
I like to, Don LaGreca went on a rant like about a month ago, a little over a month ago, about baseball. Someone called and said that Joey Gallo. I don't know if you follow baseball, but someone called the Michael K show and said, "Oh yeah, Joey Gallo is the reason why the Yankees are, they suck or something like that." He said, like the Yankees, who are very clearly one of the best teams in baseball, I mean, how much better can you get? His argument was that if Gallo wasn't in the lineup, that they'd be 20 games over 20 games ahead instead of 10
Look,
games ahead of the next guy.
I
It would
I
really
don't.
like Georgiev or Hayek, would it
Mhm.
make that much of a difference for the Rangers? Would it
Mhm.
really? You lose a couple of games, really, in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
82 game schedule. But if you're pointing to them to be the reason you lost 10 games, I don't know, man. I think that's a little all over the place. I don't know. I don't agree
Yeah.
with that.
I look. I don't know a lot about baseball, but I started watching highlights this season of the Yankees games because my fiance is a Yankees fan, and since we're getting married, I might as well
Watch some
familiarize
baseball.
myself
Watch some baseball.
familiarize myself a little bit with the team she supports, dude. If you don't score a run in 19 straight innings, that's not one guy's fault, dude. That's more than just one guy. I mean, Joey Gallo is a Yankees player, right?
He was a Yankees player. He's
Oh
now
my.
on the Dodgers. But yeah, before
Okay.
he got traded,
Yeah.
a lot of people were complaining about that. And it's the same thing with Rangers Twitter. Everybody, when Hayek and Nemeth and Georgiev were all letting in goals, basically, everybody who was being called out, those guys. And then it's just like, and the same thing with like the guys in the playoffs, like our top 6 forwards that didn't show up. Like, well, where are they? And no one's calling those guys out. So what's the deal here?
Yeah. Look, just to reiterate my point, you're gonna have to go with either Lundqvist or Jones, because, and this is someone on Twitter said this, and I keep repeating it all summer long. because he said it about playing Heedle on the second line before we signed Trocheck and playing Kakko and Lafreniere in the top six. You have to trust these guys. If you don't trust them now, then when are you going to trust them?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, at
Yep.
some point, you have to just play them. And
Yep.
it's frustrating to, and I'm telling you, you know, when the Rangers play at 7 p.m. Eastern, that's midnight for me. I live in Dublin, Ireland. If I turn on my stream and I see Semi Blais or Dryden Hunt in the top six, I'm turning off my TV and I'm going to bed. I'm telling you now, I'm not going to stay up until 2:30 a.m. to watch Semi Blais or Dryden Hunt in the top six.
Well, I will stay up for that, and I'll just pray deeply internally that Gallant makes the change to what it should be, or something completely different. Something different.
Look, and it's nothing against Semi Blais or Dryden Hunt, but they're good players in the right role. Dryden Hunt on the fourth line, Semi Blais on the fourth line is exactly what this team can use. But we have better players to play in the top six. Lafreniere and Kakko, barring injuries, should spend 82 games in the top six.
You're playing Dryden Hunt on the second line over players on the team named Lafreniere and Kakko. Like, you're taking away ice time there. So you got to trust. Yeah, like that. I mean, it's such a good point what you said. If you're not trusting him now, then when is it going to happen? So
exactly. I mean, Kakko's 21. Lafreniere is turning 21 in October.
So if they don't like break out this year, let's say they only get 40 points only. That's a huge step forward. They haven't had anywhere near that. Like, what's the career high for Kakko? 20-something points?
29?
If he gets like 60 points, let's say, that's double his total. That's a huge step forward. Or even if he gets 50 points, 45, that's a pretty sizable upgrade, I'd say.
All right, so he had 23 in his first season, but he missed, of course, a lot of games with injury this past season. He was on pace for 35 points this past season over 82 games.
Okay, so even if he gets 50 points, like a 15-point increase, that's a good upgrade, and you need to give him the time. So there's going to be growing pains this year. If you want to really trust the process, put him in the top six. You may not be as good as last year, but my God, if you want to take a step forward, sometimes you got to take a step backward. So we may not make the Eastern Conference Finals this year with this lineup. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that you might need to let it happen. If you want to be good, like for 5-10 years down the road, you're going to have to get these kids some playing time, some experience, because they have not had that. Not consistent top six playing time. And they did say that they needed to do that. So I'm holding them to that.
And the year before the Rangers won the Cup in '94, they missed the playoffs. The Rangers made the conference final in 2012, right? Remember that when we lost to the Devils? The following year, we lost in the second round to the Bruins. 2013.
Mm-hmm.
That was the year. That was the year Charlie McAvoy tweeted, "I hate the Bruins."
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah,
that was Dash's first year with the Rangers, and was high expectations. Like, yeah, we were supposed to go far.
But you get eliminated by the Bruins, who make it all the way to the Stanley Cup final, only to lose to the Blackhawks. It's okay, you know. Just because you made the conference final the year prior doesn't mean you're automatically going to make it one step further. If the Rangers make it to the second round of the playoffs and they get eliminated, that's not, you know, we shouldn't get too upset about that, because it's going to be disappointing, but it's not the end of the world. Because for me, the window will always open. I've always said this: the Cup window will open in 2024.
I say the real window opens when we're officially done with the rebuild, when Kakko and Lafreniere pull their own weight.
Well,
when the mat starts to work out.
That's also a good point. But if I look at rebuilds in the salary cap era, it takes the most successful teams, right? The most successful teams takes them at least 5 years to go from bottoming out to winning a cup. At least 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Most teams take 6, 7, or 8 years. The Blackhawks needed 6 years. The Penguins, from the first time they picked top 5 to winning a Stanley Cup, was 7 years. The Colorado Avalanche just won a cup. It took them 13 years. They drafted Matt Duchene 3rd overall in 2009, and it still took them 13 years to win a cup.
Mm-hmm.
The Tampa Bay Lightning drafted 1st and 2nd overall in 2008 and 2009. It took them 11 years to win a cup.
There were a lot of it's a journey. It's like there's a lot of pains there. It took them a while to get to the play. I mean, they went to the conference. The Lightning went to the conference finals in 2011. I don't forget that. But then
and they went to the Stanley Cup final in 2015 when they beat us.
Right, they went through some growing pains. Like
they've had their runs. You know, they cut some dead wood along the way. They kept retooling their team, and eventually they won a cup. The Washington Capitals drafted Ovechkin 1st overall in 2004. It took them 14 years to win a Stanley Cup.
I'm not ready to give up on these guys yet. Like the younger players. I know people are expecting Kakko Lafreniere to come in immediately, start producing. It's very difficult. Some players that it just takes a while for them to just get it. Wasn't Nichushkin? Nichushkin was like a 1st round pick by the Dallas Stars, right? He is just now figuring out his role, like what he should be. Just now, like this was his best year, was it not?
Yes.
Right, like he was a integral part of that Avalanche team. I don't know what line he played on, but whatever line he was on, he made a significant impact on the team. And he was a 1st round pick. The Stars got rid of him, and he found his niche, his role, what he needed to be with the Avalanche. It just takes some time. So hold your horses with let's get rid of these guys.
I'm not comparing Kaapo Kakko to the players I'm going to mention now, but if you look at top 5 picks, Andrew Ladd, Henrik, and Daniel Sedin didn't hit 50 points until they were 25 years old. James Van Riemsdyk was 24 when he did it the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Reinhart and Jordan Staal were 23. Nino Niederreiter was 25. Huberdeau was 22. Same with Nathan Horton and Thomas Vanek. Now, again, I'm not comparing these players to Kaapo Kakko. I'm just looking at top 5 picks and when was their first 50-point season. Kakko just turned 21. Can you imagine the Vancouver Canucks saying in 2002, yeah, these Sedin twins, they suck. We're going to trade them for like a 2nd round pick.
Right. Like that would have been absolutely absurd.
Yeah. But I do agree with you that the Rangers rebuild, and I still call it a rebuild because there's different phases for me in the rebuild. There's phase 1 where you sell off players, you acquire draft picks, and you draft your future stars. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is where you start to acquire your players to fill the holes.
Right, you got to fill out the rest of your lineup.
Exactly. So you get a guy like Vinny Trocheck.
Mm-hmm.
That's phase 2, and then phase 3, that's where you start trading away 1st round picks because you go all in, like the phase we had from 2012 to 2015. I think we're still a year away from entering that phase, but phase 2 is still very exciting. We're gonna fight to win the division, but the rebuild will still depend heavily on will Kakko and Lafreniere hit their stride, because those guys need to hit at least 50, 60 points a season for us to actually make something happen. Hopefully it happens this season, but if it doesn't, it's frustrating, but I'm not going to throw the towel with with 2 guys that a year from now are going to be 22 and 21 years old.
If you want the whole plan to work, the whole plan meaning, a perennial contender like the Avs, like the Lightning, Kakko, Lafreniere have to start pulling their own weight. If you want a team that's like a kind of a, we'll see what happens this year, remove Lafreniere and Kakko from the equation. I feel like, that's what I want. What I want is my team for once to just be every single year, be in competition. Like, I mean, I know we were from 2012 to 2015. It's just like, the Rangers are going to be good this year. You know that for sure. Like, because we have Lundqvist, but they never drafted. It wasn't from literally from the ground up. It wasn't like that. Like they acquired these players and then they built around them. Lundqvist was drafted in 2000, and he came up in what 2006,
2005. So
2005, right?
5 years after being drafted. Same as
Right.
Shesterkin.
Right, but I'm saying, like, the Rangers really haven't had a team which they've truly built from the ground up, filled with superstar potential talent, like a first
Yeah.
overall pick and a second overall pick, and all these other players too that were
Yeah.
also top 5 picks. You know what I mean? You got what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. No, true. And look, and again, not comparing Kako to this player, but we've just seen 3 seasons of Kaapo Kakko. This was his 3rd year after being drafted. When Chris Kreider came over in 2012 for the shortened season, he had two goals, 1 assist in 23 games.
Mm-hmm.
The following year, he had 17 goals, 20 assists for 37 points in 66 games. And then he had 46 points in 80 games, 43 in 79. Development isn't linear. You cannot just look at a graph and go, well, he was here last year, he was here this year, so he's going to be here next year. It just doesn't work like that.
A lot of factors into it, like injuries. We didn't know that COVID was going to happen.
Oh, there's COVID, there's injuries, there's ice time, there's special teams.
Right. Special teams is a huge deal because Kakko Lafreniere did not see barely any time. And if they did, it was just a 30-second on the fly line change. No offensive zone face off. Let's get set up. Let's move the puck around a little bit, get into our positions. None of that. It's just you have to skate, get past their trap, and then set up right away. It's very difficult.
I remember when the second unit was Kakko, Hedel, Lafreniere, Gauthier, and Trouba. Yeah. Okay. Look, these kids are gonna hopefully make strides, but if it doesn't happen this year, it's gonna be frustrating. But it's not the end of the world, Lafreniere is not even old enough to buy a beer in New York City.
Yep.
And all I want from Kakko and Lafreniere, I don't expect them to be Jack Eichel and Austin Matthews. I just want them to be better than Nolan Patrick and Nail Yakupov, and I'm still confident that they will be.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I want to see it work out. That's all I'm asking for. I want to see him hit his potential because we all witnessed Kakko's brilliance in his whatever tournament it was. Was it World Junior Championships?
Mm-hmm. And then the World Championships,
World Championships, yeah. And Lafreniere's too, his brilliance with Rimouski. Did he win a gold medal in the World Junior Championships? Like I can't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But like we all want to see. I think Lafreniere looks like he's making a name for himself. I think he's coming to his own a little bit. Kakko for me is the big question. I need him to stay healthy this year.
Yeah. Sam Reinhart is another example. Sam Reinhart didn't become a point per game player until this past season. He's 26. So we'll see what happens. But I'm ready for hockey, man. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to fly to New York for preseason.
Yeah, I can't wait for hockey to start either. I mean, right now I'm really into baseball. Mets are killing me right now, just really pulling on my heartstrings, and they got to make it close, just like they always do. But yeah, I'm with you. Hockey, I can't wait for it.
If you like the Mets, there's a movie you should watch. It's called Frequency. Let's put it this way. I don't know anything about baseball, but because of that movie, I know the name Cleon Jones.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Cleon Jones. He made the final out of the 1969 World Series, which is
and
only one of 2 championships the Mets have won in their franchise history.
Yeah. And there was something with shoe polish on the ball or something.
Yep.
See, that's all in the movie. You should watch the movie.
Oh, I know all about it. I read that in a book when I was like 10 years old, but I will watch the movie now because I love that stuff. All right.
What I'll do is I'll send you a link. It's in my Google Drive. I'll send you a link.
Sounds good to me. All right. Ice Cold Takes listeners, still going after Kevin Weeks. I'm gonna pump out content. We're gonna get him eventually. We're gonna get him. I know I ran a poll the other day and it was like majority of people, over 50%, said he's never coming on. I don't agree with that, and I'm gonna keep going until he gets on the
Listen,
show.
keep pushing, keep trying, keep going. Look, when I started when I started, the prospect stuff and the stats on Twitter a couple of years ago, I had like 150 followers. I mean, you never know. And now I'm interviewing prospects. I'm talking to family members of players. I have Ranger scouts sometimes chat to me, and just keep pushing, and things will happen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I appreciate it. And you yourself now are in a spot, thousands of followers, yet you still make time to come on a show that's not as known in the community, but you still make the time to do it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, we're all Ranger fans. We're all in this together. So
Yep.
always
Go
happy
Rain,
to join.
go Rangers! Can't wait for October. I mean, and you know what? Can't wait for September. I want to see those
There you
preseason
go.
games actually. Yeah, I can't wait.
All
But
right.
yeah, good episode. We'll see everyone next week.